Hi guys, Togo here with a new video, and this video will be a top 5 best classes or specs to main in the Wall Within if you are looking into wanting to be meta. This is like not really my cup of tea. I prefer to look into what is more my cup of tea of having fun with those classes, but some people really want to chase the flavor of the month or being like the best out there for season 1. So this video is for you guys, although again balancing changes and a lot of stuff can change, but with the prediction I have in my head, I'm not going to do a prediction tier list for now. I think it's too soon. But with the prediction I have in my head and how it will pan out at season 1 and how season 1s usually pan out, it should be those classes that are going to shine the most, or at least the specs that I'm going to point out. So the first class spec that I would recommend you guys to play in the Wall Within would be Death Knight, and more precisely Unholy Decay. Why not Frost Decay? Because Frost Decay is just notoriously a spec that is a bit risky in being meta. I think it is very fun though, so it doesn't really matter. It does matter, but it is not as bad as in Shadowlands or in BFA or even in Dragonflight, where the playstyle was not that good. The playstyle of Frost Decay is very good right now. Even if it's nerfed, at least it is fun to play. But Unholy Decay right now is in a state of doing absolute damage on the beta, but also just in general with how the class spec and the class and the spec talent trees are working out, and also the hero tons working together with the spec, which is Unholy Decay. It seems like it's going to be a very, very good spec to begin with at season 1. Now, can it get nerfed? It could, but I think with how season 1s are panning out and how it is supposed to pan out, I do feel like Unholy Decay will be in an extreme good position if you really want to main something just to be the best out there in PvP. Again, I want to remind you guys it is for PvP, but I think a lot of stuff can also be seen in PvE. I think Unholy Decay is also doing quite well in PvE, if I'm not mistaken. But in PvP, I think a lot of stuff are really looking good for DKs, but more precisely Unholy Decay. Now, the second spec class that I would recommend for you guys in PvP would be Warrior. Notoriously, season 1 Warriors are always like kind of good. At least one of the specs are good, so that's why I'm like recommending the Warrior spec in general. You have Warrior class in general, excuse me. So you have Arms and Fury. Normally both will be very viable and very good at season 1. The hero tons are very good, like Slayer for Fury and for Arms is actually looking very good. And we have also Arms with Colossus, which is very fun to play. I don't know if it's going to be very meta. It does a lot of damage, but I think Slayer with Blaze Storm being there and how it gives you more mobility in general, it's going to be probably better in arenas. I think solo queue RPGs, you can play Colossus pretty much and play like a highlight reel of doing damage. And Fury, Mountain Thane is more of a... It depends on balancing. I will be playing Mountain Thane for sure because it really is a cool like playstyle. But I don't know if it's going to be very good because I need to test it more, and I'm not playing that much beta. Like I don't want to like spoil myself too much for the War Within, but it is something I will be testing more throughout and see for myself. It's going to be strong or not. But I think Fury or Arms is going to be very good in arenas or in solo queue RPG. I think both will be equally good, but depending on balancing, it could be one overtaking the other. But Warrior is like one of the specs if you're like class, if you're looking for a melee and is physical, and I would say like an entry melee class, I think Warrior is the best entry melee class out there with Demon Hunter. And I think I can also recommend Demon Hunter, guys. I am not a fan of Demon Hunter. I think a lot of people know that. I might like again see for myself in the War Within if I might play it or not. To be fair, I already like made a tier list for myself, but also for you guys. And I did put it on. I'm not going to play it pretty much. But there's always like. Sometimes I'm looking at it and it seems very cool, but I don't know if the gameplay is really for me. But from what I've seen, the hero taunts are like very, very strong for Demon Hunter. I don't know if it's like very flavorful though. And the spec in the class tree is still working very well in PvP. I think in PvE it still kind of needs help, so it means that you kind of get buffed anyways. That's why you get buffs in PvP, like in general, because you get PvE buffs that are like not contradict with, for example, with a PvP not affected kind of change, and often it goes very well. The mobility is very fun. I think historical RPG, you're going to be having a blast in general as a Demon Hunter. In arenas, you have multiple comps that you can play in. I think I can recommend like always Demon Hunters, because I feel like Havoc Demon Hunter has always been like somewhat of a meta spec. I think in season 1 with how the specs are going to panning out, I think Havoc Demon Hunter has a place in the meta, and I think it's very high. For me, it is like on my tier list. I don't want to like, again, predictions. I don't like it to do it very soon like this. Balancing can still happen, and it will like overtake the video for nothing. But in my head, I place it very high, and very high I mean like the top meaty specs out there. But obviously, meta can always change by a balancing change or whatever. But if I have to recommend like a very meta spec overall through a whole expansion, I do feel like Demon Hunter is a good choice if you're playing season 1 and you're going to play season 2, season 3, and probably season 4. I do feel like having Demon Hunter will be majoritarily a very meta spec. So with everything like in Shadowlands, in Dragonflight, you have multiple like expansions that does give you that tendency of actually having a very high tiered spec. So just play it if you are really chasing the meta. Personally, I prefer DK, and I prefer also Warrior, but some people do prefer like the Demon Hunter playstyle, and that's good for you guys. Another spec that a class that I would recommend, and that is also for healing, would be Evoker. Unfortunately, like I said, I don't really like this, but someone linked me a video, or like told me about a video that Ian said that you could actually fight as a blood elf pretty much instead of like a drag tier, so you could see your transmog, and except your breathing, like your breathing spells would turn you into a drag tier, and then it will turn you back into a blood elf pretty much. Then I might maybe give it a bit more shot, but like I don't like the naked feel of a lizard pretty much. Like having only shoulder transmog is a bit like naked for me. I don't like that. But overall, if I have to like do like this, if you don't see the video, I'm closing my eyes pretty much. I think Preservation Evoker is probably the most fun healing spec out there. I think Devastation Evoker is one of the most simplest range specs that you could play. Like it is truly for me the Demon Hunters of rage specs pretty much. It has like few buttons. It's very straightforward. You have a combo that you pretty much do all the time, like surging, how it's called again, surging star or something like that, and then eternity surge. Shattering Star, excuse me, Eternity Surge into like Disintegrate, for example, and then you can do also the instant Fire Breath. You can do that as well every 2 or 3 minutes. I don't remember the CD anymore. And you can do some huge like amount of burst, and then you have also the Hero Taunts doing also a lot of damage. So again, I think Evoker has like a great class. It just is a bit like unfortunate that I wish Evoker could be played for like other races, and it could only stay on that race, and you just never turn into a drag tier form. But it is what it is. Like some people cannot really play like feral druid because you always like cat form, and I can respect that. But I cannot really compare those two. I think feral form, like cat form is like something that was since Warcraft 3, right? So again, I look forward to see what they're going to do, but it is a class that I can recommend. I think it does like insane amount of damage if you're playing Devastation. Augmentation Evoker seems like something you can play as well, but it's always going to be nerfed, so that is a risk by itself. But I think Devastation Evoker, they're going to keep it strong. Like it's a new class, and generally the expansion after gets a lot of love towards that new class and towards those new specs. So I do feel like Devastation is going to be kept strong, And Preservation Evoker, like I said, it is the most fun healing spec out there, and also performing very well in solo queue RPG, which I rated S tier. I think through balancing changes, it could be like over nerfed or not. The mobility, the AoE healing that you have, just the overall burst damage that you can also have as the Preservation Evoker helps them to be S tier in my books. And then you have also like Soul Shuffle or 3v3, where you can also have like a good like healer on your hand. So I do feel like it's a great class. It just is not really for me because of the race, but hopefully they find a way to make it a bit less drag tier to me. Again, sorry, I just don't like it. Like, it's for me, Volpera is something I will never play. I will never unlock it because I don't really care about the race, and it's the same for drag tier to me. I even prefer Worgen, which is a bit more cooler, but the ratios are a bit like silly, and it feels a bit too 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 kind to me. I would say it should be more ferocious, in my opinion. But anyways, so I have 4 classes, right? My 5th class that I would recommend to any caster out there, and if you have played the beta, you might know what caster it will be. It will be Mage. And it is not a spec or a class that I will be maining, because I already decided to main Warlock, like at least alt Warlock ahead of Mage, and I felt like I cannot really alt or main both. But if you're like looking for a caster and you want to learn and you want to play multiple specs on that caster, for example, you want to have multiple comps with that caster and you will have like different play styles, I do feel like Mage can give you that. Fire Mage is like extremely good right now on the beta. Frost Mage is also quite good on the beta, and then Arcane Mage is also actually on the final form of being very good. It gets nerfed somewhat here and there with balancing patches on the beta, but it always is kept strong right now. At least in my books, in PvP, it seems like a spec that can do a lot of damage, get away from a lot of danger, and also just like the skill ceiling and the skill floor is really far apart. So it makes it very fun to learn the spec, but also just the class. I think Mage has like a high skill ceiling, high skill floor as well, so you have a lot of like learning curve to do, but you will have a lot of fun while doing it. And if you're like looking at meta, I think right now there is nothing more meta than Mage for a lot of stuff like PvP, PvE, for a lot of like things going on. But it's very hard to play though. I think nobody's going to say that like Mage is very easy. I think Frost Mage is the easiest spec there, so you can like go as Frost Mage and learn the other specs if you want to. But I do feel like the hero towns are also very cool to play with. So it does give you the fun factors of playing a Mage, but also the meta factor that is currently on the beta. Now, it could always get nerfed, but I do feel like with the current kit that Mage has and the current balance, like the spec talents and the class talents, I do feel like you have way more agency towards like not being like bottom tier. It has been a while that Arcane Mage hasn't been D tier. I think in Shadowlands people put like Arcane Mage very much D tier, like for the majority of the expansion. Then Dragonflight came and it was a bit less D tier. It was like more C, B tier, and sometimes A tier. And now I do feel like the war within people are like not scared to put it S tier. So I do feel like Mage is really like in a good spot. It will depend on balancing, but I do feel like Mage is one of those classes that you could main, even though if it gets gutted, you will keep on maining it. So those are the 5 classes that I'm going to recommend you guys if you want to follow the meta. But truly, I would recommend you guys to follow the playstyles and the fun factor. So I made a video about that as well, but please do follow your fun, because you are not going to keep on playing if you're playing a spec or a class that you do not like. You have to play the things that you like, and if what you like is like doing flavor of the month, then so be it. But I would say if you want to keep like just 1 character or 2 characters or 3 characters, and you want to keep that for season 1, and then maybe season 2 you will change, or if you want to keep it for the whole expansion, try to find a class or a spec that you will love, so you could play it way more often without like getting like disgusted by it, but also not really caring about balancing changes, and see it like a buff, like a blessing, and a nerf like, oh well, we're just going to keep on playing it, for example. So the 5 classes that I recommend are Death Knight with Unholy DK, Warrior with Arms and Fury, Demon Hunter with Havoc Demon Hunter, which is very, very strong in my opinion. Then Evoker, the whole class, I think it's a very good class. It just is not my cup of tea on the race. And then we have Mage, which I would also recommend the whole class if you're looking for a caster, more caster-centric gameplay. Again, thank you for watching this video, really I appreciate you. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet, and hopefully we will catch you probably very soon in the next video with the wall within being very, very close to us. Again, have a great day. Bye.